Hello, this is Linda of Christ is King Forever. I want to come on today and talk about a few things like Dr. Peterson's table with 20 atheists. I think they all kind of ambush him and stuff. The real questions I have about that discussion and each person who went up is why they're asking. You can kind of tell with the way somebody is asking a question, what they're hiding and why they're asking. And that's what I wanted to talk about and how I could kind of see it, that there's a core issue that's threaded throughout each person that sits down with him. That's what I'm really focused on. I think he did really well. I kind of do feel like whenever they try to make people who are clearly not trying to be Christian, not in a very open way. I don't know if he is privately. They're not in defense of Christianity. They kind of keep putting him in a place of defending it. And because he's a gentleman, he does, because he understands that the math is good when it comes to Christianity, psychologically, emotionally, historically. There's just a lot of levels. Christianity is a winner. And any society that doesn't have it seems to not do well. Like there's still a lot of deep slavery happening in Middle Eastern countries, but this is part of my analysis of the video anyway. But first I want to talk about how I was watching AP and David Wood. This is them. Apostate Prophet is the guy below in a wig, and Dr. David Wood is actually at the top. He's sitting here and talking about this video they're watching with O'Connor and a mathematician who is a believer in God. I can't remember his name. Okay. They are talking together and they're simply adding commentary to the video, right, as they're watching, which is very cool. I thought about doing that, but whatever. I'm not as good at this. And they do it live, which is a little bit more interesting. AP, actually, I've been watching him for years on off with Dr. David Wood because they talk together. Was an atheist for years. He recently, within the last few weeks to maybe a month or two ago, has become an Orthodox Christian. And he actually has like images behind him of Christianity and around his neck. If you go back and watch the videos, it's really kind of cool to see his transformation. That in itself is very cool. To see his family, his whole family, come to Christianity and Orthodoxy. But I want to talk about the video I'll place below, and it's about Dr. David Wood. It's very beautifully done. It is an older video. It does have an older video vibe, but I would take the 30 minutes to watch it. It is the death that happens in us through the natural ways of our flesh, being born into sin, the nature of humans, the tendency toward evil, and the fact that he actually is a diagnosed psychopath. David Wood is a psychopath. Okay, I feel weird saying that, but he suffers from the social personality disorder, but he also has like psychopathic tendencies. He attacked his father and made his father brain dead. The death that happens in the video, the stuff that's happening in the background, and the resurrection is beautiful. It's probably one of the best testimonies you'll ever see on the internet. And the fact that nature lost. And I was watching a video with him and AP talking about this conversation between O'Connor and John Lennox, that's who he is. And to hear him, Dr. David Wood, say that there's a language found in the Bible and a logic found in understanding God, like coding, that when he wanted to go, when Dr. Wood wanted to go study DNA, he had to first study computer coding because that's how precise the DNA is. In his DNA, Dr. Wood's DNA, he was a psychopath. But he was made new, and the DNA was rearranged. In a sense, if you can consider this spiritually, DNA was rearranged. His nature didn't win. The nurture of God through the Holy Spirit won. That's what won. And to hear a psychopath, a person who in the past has very severe tendencies, psychopathic tendencies, and violence, proclaim what has saved him, what delivered him from this mindset, what delivered him from the nature he was born in. He was born this way. So by our logic, he should just do whatever he feels like doing. And he goes through this thought process of what he was thinking as a child, as a teenager, as a young man, what he was plotting. And the way his mind was going was darker, 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 until he came to some truths, because he was confronted by a cellmate. And a cellmate who was a Christian. it is just, there's just something about watching this person speak on the coding of God that is found in nature, being a person who was recoded and the Holy Spirit had conquered the nature of. I'm just like watching art in motion. I'm watching God do miraculous things. This to me, watching a person who was diagnosed a psychopath talk about how you can see God through coding. I could say it over and over again and it won't make sense to anybody who doesn't get it. Because if anybody deserves to complain or just stay in their nature, it's somebody who was born with something like that. But he refuses. And it was through the inspiration of God that he's changed. And now he dedicates his life to bringing people to Christ. And AP is actually one of the people I believe were inspired by him. Well, of course, the Holy Spirit, but just like he was inspired by his cellmate. And that is a testimony. He's not one of a few. He's one of millions. And you can't find that in other religions. The idea of a testimony is unique to Christianity. The idea of the Great Commission is unique to Christianity. Other cultures and other religions conquer you with violence. He dedicates his channel to fighting violent ideology that's found in Islam. But this naturally violent man was conquered by the love and logic of God. And what makes his testimony very unique is that he doesn't operate from feelings. He only goes based off logic and reason because he doesn't have an emotions like that. He doesn't feel emotional the way we do. And it turned out, he talks about this throughout his video, how he thought he had superpowers, and then he had to kind of learn that that's not true. I do believe this is a superpower. I think that this thing that was built into him, that some would say it's a flaw, actually ended up honoring God in a very unique way. It basically worked out for the good of those who are called to God's purpose. This whole thing he was born into, because it speaks to other people who suffer from similar things. And it also pulls away that emotional part of it, so you can actually hear how his logic and reason brought him straight from very aggressive atheism, active atheism, right into the logic and thoughts and reasoning of following Jesus Christ. So I would watch that video below. Watching him speak on this is like watching the parting of the sea. It's miraculous, but it didn't happen once. This has happened millions of times for 2,000 years. Since Jesus was here for 2,000 years, there are millions, if not billions, of testimonies. And therein is the difference between the relativism that's found everywhere else with, oh, what about this religion? What about what he thinks? What about he believes? No, you tell me, you look at this person who suffered from severe mental illness and was born this way, being corrected and being a great warrior for Christ. And you tell me if that's like any other religion, truth, or way or life that you've ever seen before. There is nothing like living, breathing, speaking truth. And I see that when I see people like Dr. David Wood.